Now today we are going to see about the troubleshooting of boot process. In previous lecture we have seen that how the system boots and what happens when the system boots. Now this is RHEL 7, it is different from the previous versions of RHEL. Like for example RHEL 5, RHEL 6, 4, 3, it is different because in booting it is using what a different thing. It is using system D for initializing the system. In previous versions they are using the init for initializing the system. So previously it was sysinit which was used to initialize the system, but now it is system D which is initializing the system. Then in previous versions we have grub as a bootloader, grub version 1 in RHEL 6, and prior to RHEL 6 it was optional to have grub. We have the default bootloader as a Lilo, and we have option to install the grub as a bootloader. But now in RHEL 6 it was compulsory, it is by default grub version 1, but now in RHEL 7 we have grub version 2. So grub version 2 is a bootloader which used to boot our system, and with not only it is booting, it is giving multiple other options also for us. So it is giving us other options also, like we can manage the boot, and we can manage the grub, and we can manage the boot process also. Now very quickly I will go through the boot process, how the system starts. So first what it do here, first it do the post. That means first process is what the post. Post means power on self test, and in this what it do, it checks the hardware. Our system checks the hardware, that whether the hardware is okay or not, and then when it's everything okay, then it will go for the boot sequence. It will go for the boot sequence which is set on the BIOS. It checks the boot sequence in the BIOS, that which device we have configured to start the system. Like for example we have installed the system, so we install the system in our hard disk, so it will go into our hard disk, and what it will boot from the hard disk. Now if we are wanted to install the system, then we set as a boot our first boot device as a CD DVD. Now when it is installed, so it will install in the hard disk, and we select the first boot device as a hard disk. So it will start from the hard disk. It will go to hard disk and it will check the MBR. MBR is actually master boot record, and MBR is a space of 512 byte. So every bootloader, every operating system puts their bootloader file into that place. That place is called MBR, master boot record. It is the first space, first sector in our hard disk. Now in case we are using the UEFI firmware, and if it is using the EFI partition, it is actually secure boot. So for UEFI firmware, it uses what it instead of MBR, it uses EFI partition for storing the bootable bootloader files. So if it in that case, then it will go for the EFI partition, but in our RHEL 7 it will not have the EFI partition, it goes to the MBR. Now after the MBR, it checks what the bootloader file. Bootloader file is a small file which can fit into 512 byte size, and that is what, and that from here our operating system will decide. Like from till now it is not confirmed that is it Windows or Linux, what operating system is loading, but after this bootloader it will say that which operating system will install. Like if it is Windows, so Windows will install the bootloader file here. If it is Linux, so Linux will install the bootloader file here. So our Linux bootloader file will be there under the MBR, and that is what grub. Now in RHEL 7 it is what grub. So from the MBR the grub will be loaded, grub 2, and grub 2 will do what? When it is loaded the bootloader file from there, it will, the job of the bootloader file is to forward and do the other things. And what it do here, it loads the grub configuration file. Configuration file, and then it provides the menu entry, that entry what the entry what It provides the menu entry like which kernel we want to boot. By default we have two kernels here, two kernels, that means one is the normal kernel and the other one is the rescue, kernel rescue. Now if you check this, I will show you here. The first partition is what SDA1, and that is what the boot partition. It is mounted on /boot, and in the /boot we have all the bootable files where we have the grub files also. So when you go to /boot, you can see all the bootable files here, including the grub directory. In the grub directory, what we have all the grub bootloaders file. So when you list the grub, you can see the main configuration file for the grub. So this is the file which is going to be loaded, and this file presents the menu entry. Menu entry, that means when we start the system, we see the entry of the two or more operating system, the kernels we have, and it waits for the 5 seconds by default. If you don't do anything, then it will do what? It will start the first entry. You can see the entries in this file. So when you check the file, you will see the entries there. So you can see the file here, and under the file you can see the menu entry. This is the menu entry with including other scripts. It's a script with including the other scripts. You can see the menu entry, and you will see this name for this kernel. And there is another kernel we have in this by default, that is for rescue, and this is the name for that, rescue kernel. So these two names by default we see, and if we have multiple other kernels, then we can see the names of those kernels also. Now once you select this, any entry, so the bootloader job is to run this kernel with all these options and the kernel files. So when you select this entry, so grub's job, bootloader's job is to do what? It loads the kernel file. It loads the kernel file with these all options. First it loads, we set these options like the IS in its mode, Gizmo, part DOS, XML file system. Then it sets the root file system, where it is going to get all the bootable files. Here it is saying HD0, that means the first hard disk, and MS-DOS1, that means the first partition. So from first hard disk, first partition, it is going to get all the bootable files, and that is what our boot partition, and that boot partition is mounted on /boot, and we can see under the /boot we have all the bootable files. So if you select the first entry, so it loads, it sets the boot partition here with these entries, and after setting the boot partition, it looks into the boot, load the kernel, and this is what the kernel it is. This is the kernel file for the first entry, and this file is also under this same directory /boot, and we can see this is the kernel file. Now it is Linux, so we can see the kernel. It is in Windows, we can't see the kernel. Even we can delete this kernel also. Then what? It loads with the kernel file, it loads this initial RAM disk also. Initial RAM FS, it is the temporary file system for our RAM. It loads this temporary file system under the RAM, and that what? It is actually the temporary file system like /etc directory, /run directory, /dev directory, to have some the drivers or the file system we want to run. Right now we are not having any, our main file system is loaded. This is the temporary file system to run run and execute the main file system also. So it runs the drivers, whatever the drivers and applications are there, they will be run from here. It is loaded under this file system. I will show you what this file system and how it looks. Then if you select this entry, it is for the rescue. So there is a kernel for the rescue also, and with all these options it is setting the first boot device is this, and then also it is setting this the kernel file, and we can see this is what the kernel file name, and this is also available under the same directory. Then with this kernel file it is going to load this ramfs, that is also rescue, and we can see that file is also here. Now when once it is loaded the kernel, as you can see here, with the kernel it has some parameters also, and these parameters are also loaded with the kernel. These are some of the parameters, like this is the root ID, UUID, read only, it is crash kernel is auto set to auto, RHGB is set to quiet, and the language is selected here. But we can add multiple other options also, like we can enable disable firewall, we can set the environment, we can set the we can configure the IP addresses also, we can do multiple, we can run multiple parameters with the kernel, and that will load by default when we boot the system. So this is what the kernel is loaded, it loads the temporary file system. Now the Grub's job is finished here. Then what, the kernel will take over from here, and then what, kernel will start loading the hardware drivers and the files which is under this temporary file system. And also it will do what, it will run the init process, init RD process first, and then what, that loads the initial ramfs. It will load the in the initial ramfs it will load our main file system into a sysroot directory. In the temporary file system there is one directory called sysroot, and in that directory our main files will be loaded, our main partitions will be loaded. And then when it is loaded the main partition, then our etc directory comes, and under the etc directory there is a file called fstab. So when it loaded the main partition into this temporary file system directory sysroot, so under the sysroot then comes the etc directory, and under the etc directory there comes the fs tab file. Now what this fs tab file is having, if you see under the etc fs tab, this is the file, and you see it has information about the partitions, that which partition is to be mounted on which directory and which file system and what are the options. So it has the information about the partitions, that where the partition has to be mounted. Now when this file is loaded, then what the kernel do, it will start unmounting the temporary file system from the initial ramfs, and then it will start mounting the main file system which is mentioned in this fstab file, and then our partitions will be mounted. And after our partitions will be mounted, then the kernel starts the first process, that is this system D, and this is what a difference from previous versions of RHEL. In previous versions we have init here, now we have system D. System D do what, it can run multiple processes simultaneously, so that it can boot the system quickly than the init systems. So now we have this system D as our first process, and it do what, this is the process ID first. So this is the first process, and who executed the process is 0. 0 means it is a kernel. A kernel also executed this process, and that is for the kernel threading, and it also execute all these kernel threading hardware related profiles. And then what, this system D's job is to initialize the system, and for initializing the system, system D will do what, system D will do check the directory under etc system D system directory, and under this directory it will check it is having all the files which is going to be loaded. So it checks first this default.target, it checks the default.target file first, that what this file says. Now this file defines that whether the system is going to be as a graphical or as a command line. So if our system is going to be as a graphical, so it is going to load this and check whether it is saying graphical or command line, and if it is saying command line, then you will see it in this file. So when you check this, so it is saying this is graphical, so our system boots it into graphical. This file also defined that what is required to execute this and what is confliction, and also it is going to execute after which other services and targets. So based on this file, system D will start initializing the system, and it will do what? It will start initializing and running the services and targets from here, from this directory, because this directory has all the required services and targets available here, so that it can run at the boot time. And once these all things are executed, then the user will get the get the login menu, and then user can log in and use the system. So this is what the brief way, briefly I have told you like how the system D will boot, our Linux system is boot. So this is how the briefly I have I've shown you that how it boots. Now how we can manage these boot process. First, the grub. The grub is what? It is loading, it is a bootloader. It is a bootloader, and all the related files are under the first partition. Under the first partition, that means under the boot partition. So we can see the first partition is what? This SDA1. This is SDA1, and SDA means it's the first hard disk, and this one is the first partition, and it is mounted on /boot, and it always mounted on /boot, our first partition. So we know that our first hard disk and first partition is mounted on boot, and we have all the bootable files under that /boot. So when you go to /boot, so you can see all the files. We have the kernel file, we have the initial RAMFS, and also we have these grub files. We have the grub file also available. So this grub directory consists all the grub files. So when you go to this, you can see all the files related to grub, and this is the main configuration file for the grub. Now when you see the file and you want to modify some settings from this file, so when you open the file, I'm opening it with VIM, and it is having a problem. Okay, so when you open the file, what you will see here is a script, and it is a bash script. Now if you understand the bash scripting, then you can edit it directly here. But when you go up, what it says at the beginning, it says do not edit this file. So it is not recommended to edit this file directly. So what you do, how you can change some of the options from here. So if we want to change something from here, so it is saying you can't edit this, you should not edit this. It is automatically generated by this process using the templates of this directory. So basically it is using the templates of this directory. So you can go to that directory and check what are the templates there. So I will go to that directory, I will open another terminal, so we can check that directory. And that is cd under etc. We have a directory called grub.d. Now under the directory we have all these files, and as you see the color, it is a script files. So we have these different templates. For example, this is what 00 header, and when you go to this grub file, you can see it is beginning the file, which file is what? 00 header. So these options, these configurations are coming from this 00 header file, and it is ending here. Then it is starting the other template, that is this 00 tune. There is no options here. Then it is ending here. Then it is starting other file like a user 01 users, and it is having some parameters here. Then it is ending here. Then it is starting this 10 Linux, and it is having the menu entry. So this menu entry is coming from that file and it is ending here. Then there is other files which does not have any configurations, don't have any other configurations. There is one file here which has something here, and then rest is not having anything. So these configurations are coming from these template files which is under etc grub.d directory. So what these templates are, let's try to edit the menu entry. Or suppose I want to increase the time, hold down time for 5 seconds to extra. You can see the time is coming from here. Timeout is 5 seconds. So when it provides the menu entry, it provides the menu. When we start the system, it gives us the menu. So that menu lasts for 5 seconds. So we want to increase the time, and it is coming from this 00 header file. So I want to edit the file and try to increase the size of the time. So I will open this 00 underscore header file. Now when I open this, I say okay, I want to see where is the 5 second option. So it is it is another script. So basically it is also another script which is having a lots of loops here. Now if you understand the shell scripting, then you can edit this file also. You can edit it as easily. These are some scripts, these are the loops it is here. So if you understand the configuration, if you understand the loops, then you can edit it easily, and you can find and you can increase the time also. It may be there somewhere, so you have to find the time, how much time it is set here, so you can edit and change it. Now before you try to edit, you should read all these things. It is just an information, and what it information, it is information about the file. Now it looks like it is not that easy to edit for the normal people who don't understand the scripts. If you don't understand the scripting, then you are not able to easily edit all any of these files. Like for example, the menu entry is coming from this file. So let's try to check the file to see what menu entries are coming, and I will try to change something. So what it is showing here, it is also a script which is generating that menu entry. Now it is also can be difficult for us if you don't understand the scripting. Okay. Now what these scripts, what these templates are and what they do, if you want to know first, then you have to go to read this readme. So let's check the readme file for it. And what it says here, it says the all executable files in this directory are processed in a shell expansion order. Now shell expansion order, that means first it is going to process the number 0, then it will go on to process number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. So it is going to process this and this. So it is going to process in a shell order, and that is why it is having a number here. Now what these are, these files are, first 00 star. So any file which is having 00 extension at the beginning and then any name here, these are reserved for header files. So these are header. These are header files which is having the header information. Then 10, the files which is starting from 10 and it can have any name, that means these files. So these files are native boot entries. Now these files can have a boot entries here. Like we have 2 boot entries by default, and that is what, one normal Linux and one the rescue kernel. So that entries are here under this file. Then the 20 is for the third party apps. Example, this memtest 86 plus. So if you want to boot the if you want to run the boot time the third party applications, so those entries can come under this 20 files, number 20. Like we have these 2 files here, but they don't have any anything there. It is just a blank file right now. Then their number namespace in between is configurable by system installer or administrator. So system installer, that means if suppose we install something into our system like third party software or something, so it is going to manage the numbers from 20 to 30. So the numbers available here from 20 to 30 is for managing or adding extra entries. Like if suppose I want to add new boot kernel, so I have option available from 10 to 20. I can create files from 10 to 20 to add extra boot options or extra boot entries. So it can be created by the administrator manually, or it can be created by the application automatically. So when you install the application, it will create the file for it itself, or administrator can also create for it. Like for example, you can add an entry to boot another OS as 01 like other OS, or 11 as other OS, then etc. Like depending on the position you want it to occupy in the menu, and then adjust the default setting via this file. So what we can do, we can put an entry here and the sequence which we want to execute it. So if we want to have an entry before the default, we can add entry before this number 10, and if we want to add an entry for the boot kernel after the default one, then we can add after this 10, like 11, 12, 13, like this. So we can add here, it can be added manually or it can be added automatically by the installer also. Like suppose I install the kernel, so it can be added here automatically, entry here automatically in this directory. Now we can change the default settings. Now these are the settings coming from the scripts. So if you know, understand the better, if you understand the script better, so you can do the changes here directly. Or if you don't understand it better, then what you can do, you can change some default setting from this grub file from the etc default directory. And also this custom file is for your custom entries. If you want to have some entries for the boot time, then you can add it here. And for the basic options we have here, we can change it from here. We can add this in this file, and that is also saying here under this grub.cfg file. It is saying that it is loading this automatically, it is generating this automatically from the templates here and the settings from this file. So this file is having a settings which we can change easily. We can change, like for example, if you want to change the time, if you want to add or remove some options with the kernel, so if you want to add some parameters with the kernel, then you can add it here, or you want to remove some parameters, then you can remove it from this file. So this file you can easily understand. So if you want to do some changes, so you can do it from there. So for example, I will open the file there, etc default, and under the default we have a file named grub. So when you open the file, you have these options, like you can adjust the timeout. By default it is 5 seconds. You can you can change the grub distributor. You can change the name. It is just a name. It is loading the file from loading the name from this file. Then you can change the default option, save, disable the sub menu true. You can disable this. You can change the terminal output, and this is what the kernel options. These are the options which is loading with the kernel. You can remove. You can add some options here. RGB quiet. Now this option do what? It will boot quietly. It will boot quietly. That means it will not show any parameters while it is booting. Or you can other parameters also here. Or we can remove the existing one. I will change something, like I will increase the time here. I will make it 15, and also I will remove this RGB quiet. It do what? It silently boot the Linux without showing any messages. So I have changed these two things, and then I will save the file. Now I save the file. Now this setting is not going to be read by the kernel, because when our system boots, it only get the access of this file, this main file. So when our system boots, it only get the access of the boot directory and under the boot directory it will get the access of this grub configuration file. So this is the file which gets the access. So when the grub loaded, so it will have only access of this file. It cannot access the file here under this directory. It will not have access here, and also it is not going to access this file. These files will come when after the kernel loads, and then it runs the main file system, and then it loads the main file system. Then this etc directory comes, and under the etc directory these files and these script files will come. But when the the grub comes and grub loaded, it will not see that files, it can see only this file. But the changes we made here under this file or this file is not going to replicate onto this file automatically. So what we have to do, whenever we do changes anything, so we don't change directly here in this file. This file is saying do not change. So it is what? It is still this timeout is still 5 seconds. And under the kernel menu it is still having this option RHGB quiet. It is still having these options. So it is still remain there, and it is not going to remove or change until we update the changes into this file. So if we want to update this main file, then we can update by using this, as it says here, generated by this grub2-mk config. So we can use this to update the changes what we have made under the templates or under the default file. So we have to update it here, and we can update this by using this command, by using this process command actually. So how we can do that? So we can do that by using the command grub2-mk config. So whatever we change, we have to update it first. So if we want to make it effect, then we have to update it, and for updating we have to run this command. Now what I am going to do, I am going to run this command without any parameter first. Now what it will do, it will actually generate the configuration with using the templates, but it is not going to update the file. So it is not going to update the main file, but still I am running it. Why? Because I want to see whether whether I have changes, the changes is right or not. Now if you have make some changes, if you have wrong changes, if you have make a mistake in a script, then you will see the error here. So before updating into the main file, we should always check that whether we have done the right configuration or not. So it is going to dump all the output directly on this standard output on our terminal. So if it is not having any error, then what we can go on to update the main file. So when I press enter here, it is generating, and now it is done. So it is actually generating the main configuration file output by using the templates. Now we have not changed any templates, but we have changed the default files, and it is what we can see the timeout is now 15 and it is changed. And also we have removed the RHGB quiet option. So under the Linux kernel option, we can see there is no option saying RHGB quiet. So we have updated the changes, we have checked the changes now, and there is no error here. That means our configuration is right. Now we can do what? We can update the changes into main configuration file. So the easy way is to do that, redirect the output to our main configuration file, that is grub2 and then grub.cfg. So when you are sure that you have done the right thing, then what, you can directly redirect the output to main configuration file, and there is no error here, and it is now done. So we have updated two things. We have increased the timeout of 15 seconds from 5 to 16 seconds, and also we have added the RHGB quiet option. Now we can check what we have done. So I will do what? I will reboot the system and then see what happens. Now this is because of the DVD is already there, so it is selecting the DVD, but I will remove it and I will boot from local, or let me remove the DVD first. Now I have removed it, and now you see when our system starts, it waits here for 15 seconds. Previously it was waiting for only 5 seconds. Let me do it again, and you can see it is waiting for 15 seconds, and it is the menu entry here. So if I don't do anything, it will stop, it will start the first entry after the timeout, or if I stop, I can press up and down arrow key to stop, and if stop the timer, and then we can select what kernel we want to boot. Right now we have two kernels here, one is the normal one, the other one is for the rescue one. Now you can select what you want to select, and then what you can press enter. And now remember, I have removed the RHGB quiet option also, so it is going to show you all the messages while it is booting. Now you see it is showing in detail, and you can see everything it is showing in detail, like what is happening in background, what services and what options it is running, and we can see all of this. By default there is RHGB quiet option is enabled, so it does not show any of these things. It directly boot from here, and you can see it is booted here. Now so this is how we can manage the grub, and if we want to change anything from the from grub, or we want to change anything, so what we can do, we should not edit the file directly, the main config file. We should edit the file from the grub.d directory under the etc, or for some basic settings we should edit the file under the etc default. There is a file called grub, so we can edit that file from there. So what we do, what we did here right now, we have added the we have increased the timeout, and also we have removed some parameters from the grub, the kernel. So when the kernel is loading, so we have removed some parameters from there, and what we have removed the RHGB quiet option. We can verify now the main file. We can see the timer is updated, and also we have removed the RHGB quiet option here. It is not showing that kernel option here. Now this is one option which we can change here. Now what happened, or also we can change these boot parameters. We can change these boot parameters while booting. So we can also do one more thing. If we want to add some options here, like if we want to add some option here for the kernel, so we have option to add it directly in the file, which will be permanent. And also we can do what, we can edit the grub options while it is booting. So there is one more option we have to edit the grub options while it is booting. We will not get the all options, but we can get the options which we can get some of the menu entry options which we can edit while it is booting time. So grub gives us the option to edit the grub configurations from the booting time also, without starting the system. Like for example, I will reboot now. Now when it is showing the 15 second, it is waiting for this menu entry. We can stop the timer first by pressing up down arrow key. Now if we want to edit any kernel entry, like this is first menu entry and this is second menu entry, so whatever the entry we want to edit, grub provide the option here for editing. So it gives us the option. First it says press up and down arrow key to change the selection, and here it is saying press E to edit the selected item. So we can edit some of the parameters while it is booting. So at the booting time also we can edit, or we can go for C for command prompt. So it will give us the command prompt also for this kernel. Now I want to edit something for the kernel, so I will select the kernel here and then I will press E. Now when I press E, we can see the menu entry here. This is the same menu entry we have seen in the main grub.conf file. Now here grub.cfg file, but we don't have all the options here. We see only the option related to the menu entry which we have selected. So this is the menu entry. It is going to load all these things like this: set root. It is setting the root partition here. It is setting these, and also when you go down, you will see the option for kernel also. This is the kernel option. This is the kernel file, and this is what the kernel options, extra options, and there is no RHGB quite there. This is the initial RAMFS. It is loading. Now if you want to edit, then we can edit here, and if you want to start with the editing, then we can press Ctrl X. So it will start with the editing what we have edited. We can edit any of these options, so we can edit and then we can start with the changes by pressing Ctrl X, or you can press Ctrl C for command prompt also, or press escape to discard edits and return to the main menu. Pressing tab list possible completion. Now we can use the tab option also to complete the auto complete the options. Now this editing which we do here, it will not be permanent. Remember, it is not going to be permanent because it is not under the file. We are not changing the file, we are only changing this boot menu at the boot time. So it is going to remain only for this boot, and when the next time we boot, this options will not be there because it is not there. We have not configured into the main configuration file. So we cannot put it here permanent options. We can put the options which we want to use to boot right now only. Like for example, we have removed the RHGB quite. Now I will add RHGB quite again. So I will go to the kernel line and I will go to the end of the line, and then I will add that option RHGB, that means Red Hat Graphical Boot, and I will add quite. I will add the quite option here. Now what it is going to do, it is going to boot quietly. For booting with the changes, what we do, we press Ctrl X here. We press Ctrl X to start with the changes, but the changes will not be permanent. It will only for this boot. Next time when you boot, the changes will be removed because it is not added into the file. We have added here at only the boot time. So let's boot it. We'll press Ctrl X here, and it is now booting with this option. Now you see it is showing what? It is not showing those messages. It is showing this only loading here. Why? Because it is booting quietly. And that is what the default option. When you remove that, it shows all the messages, what is happening in the background. So it does not show those things. It boots very quietly without showing anything. And now it is ready. But it is not added. We have not added the option into the file. So it is not going to be permanent. It is what? Only temporary for the current boot. So when you check the file, the grub.cfg file, the main file, it is not there. The changes are not there. Now when we check the file, there is no option RHGB quite because it is not added here. It is only for the first the current boot. Now when you reboot again, it is not going to show you anything. It is not going to quite bootly quite. It will show all the messages because the option is not there. Now we can add multiple options with this kernel. We can add multiple options. Not only this, we can add multiple options. There are lots of options we can add with the kernel. So this is how we can manage the grub. Now the next thing is what? System D. how we can manage and what is system D now. Now first, system D is what it is for initializing the system, and it runs by the kernel for initializing, and this is the first process we have in RHEL 7. Previously in RHEL 6 or till RHEL 6 we can say it was sysinit. Sysinit was the process, and sysinit was the system which used to initialize the system, initialize the RHEL machines. But in RHEL 7 they have used now system D, because system D can boot the system quicker than the sysinit, because it can run the process when the dependencies are completed. Now how system D works? System D works with two files. It has two files, the target files, .target files and .services. Basically it is having units. It is called units, and it is having units, multiple units actually, but the main unit it is having is the .target units and .services unit. .targets are the configuration files, and .services, as we know, it is a services file. So how to run the service and what is required to run the services are there into that files, and the .target files are the configurations, how to execute some configurations. And these files are very simple. These files are very simple scripts. As we know, like first when the system D runs, it checks the default .target file from this directory. It checks under the etc system D system directory, it checks the default .target file. It is a configuration unit. So when you see the file, you can see it is a small configuration, and it defines it is that this is a unit file, and what it do in a description it is saying it is a graphical interface, and that is why when we start the system we get the graphical interface. But we can find the documentations here, and it requires first to run this multi-user .target. Then it also it wants this service, and then it will conflict with the rescue.target, rescue.service or rescue.target. If these targets or these services are running, then it is not going to run this graphical one, and it will only run after these targets or services. And it also support the isolation. Now our system D is checking this default.target, and it is getting that this is graphical, but sometime when it checks this, it says command line also. Now when you check this directory etc system D system directory, so this directory contains all the targets and units, all the units like .targets and .services, which is going to run when our system boots. So first it checks the default.target, and based on that it will start all these targets and services which is required. Like for example, for default.target, under this directory default.target.wants, it is having the requirement targets and services unit. So when you check this default.target.wants, you can see it is having all these, like these are the services and target files. Then for others it is having the other wants. For the other services or targets, these are the wants directory which contains all the files required. Like for the multi-user.target, it has all the requirements here. Now if you see the files here, or even the default.target, when you see, where is the default.target? So when you see the default.target itself and you see all these files, so basically these files are actually link. They are soft link. They are not the actual file. So they are soft link here. So where is the actual file? So actual files are located under a different directory. So all the files, all the units, all the unit files which is .targets, .services and others will be located into the different directory. But system D will check only this directory. because in this directory we have all the files, all the units which is going to run when our system is booting, but actual location is in different directory. So if you see this, if you list one of the, let's for example default.target, I will list it with the long option. So it shows me that the actual location for these files are under lib systemd system, and then it is having the files there. Now if you see that under lib systemd system, there is a file called graphical.target, and this is the target file which is named here as a default.target, and that is why our system boots every time into graphical, because it is loading graphical.target here. So all these links are soft link from this directory. So when you see this directory, so it is lib systemd system, you will see all the files here, all the unit files, all the target files and services files. These are the original files we have here. So these are the original files we have, and all these files linked is created under etc directory. So systemd is not loading any file from this place, because in this place we have all the files, so we don't want to execute everything. So we can control, we want to control that what is going to execute at the boot time or not, and that is why it is going to check only this directory. So it is loading all the files which is in this directory, it is not loading all the files from this directory. Now if you see the default.target, so basically the default.target is actually graphical here, but it can be a command line also. Now we have different run times here. We have actually graphical, command line, and also we have rescue and emergency. Now in previous systems, directly suddenly they have changed from RHEL 6 to 7, they have suddenly changed the init to systemd. Now most of the administrators are not used to this. Then what? Now when it was init, there was 7 different run levels, but now we don't have that run levels here. We have directly the modes. We have graphical mode, command line mode, and we have rescue mode or emergency mode. So we have only command mode, graphical mode and rescue mode, and also we have only emergency mode. But even if you have seen sometime, if you see the RHEL 6, so there is different run levels are there. Run level from 0 to 6, it was actually 7 run levels. Run level 0, the run level 0 was for shutdown. It is actually called halt. That means when your system goes to run level 0, it is actually shut down. When you are set to run level 1, and run level 1 is actually for the single user. Single user, that means only one user can log in. Remember, the Linux is multi-user, but in the single run level 1, only single user can log in, and single user means only root. And the interesting thing is, in RHEL 6 or till RHEL 6, that single user in run level 1 can log in without asking any password. That means if your system goes into single user mode, then it will not ask for the password, and you can log in with the root account without any password. Then run level 2 is for the multi-user. It is set for multi-user, and it is having the command line option. That means it is a multi-user CLI, but it is not having some networking features. Then we have run level 3 in RHEL till RHEL 6, and that run level 3 was multi-user. It was multi-user, and also it was CLI, and with full option, that means with networking also. Then there was a run level 4, but it was unused. It was not used, and there is no option for it. Then run level 5 was there, and that is for the GUI graphical full user. So there was a one level 5, and the run level 5 was for graphical. This run level 5 was for GUI login, GUI, and it is a full options. Then there was run level 6, and that is for reboot. And reboot means your system will go to reboot if your run level set to 6. Now these are the run levels we have in or till RHEL 6. We can say till RHEL 6 there was an init system and it sets to this run levels, and those run levels are decided into this file. So when the init loads, it checks the init tab file actually. Right now also we have this init tab file, but it is not using the init tab file nowadays. Now it is still the file is there because they have suddenly changed from 6 to 7. So the for old administrator which is having a use, they are used to see this init tab, so they can see the init tab file still, which decides the run level. But here when you go to this file, it says init tab is no longer used when using the systemd. So basically is using the systemd and we are not using this init tab file, but still the file is there, so that if any administrator which was used to do work on till RHEL 6, if they try to get this, then it will open the file and it will know that what is the change here. It says that adding configuration here will no effect, and Control Alt D, that is for rebooting, and we have this other target for it. So there is a target here which defines the Control Alt Delete option. That means when we press Control Alt Delete while our system is running, so what to do, it is defined under this target. Then the system uses the targets instead of run levels. So now it is saying here easily that there is clearly that it is not using run levels. It is still, now it is using what, the targets for it. And by default there are two main targets related to run level. So it is comparing here. This is the graphical dot target which provides the graphical interface. It's same as what, the run level 5. Full user run level 5. And the multi-user dot target is the command line target which was same as run level 3. And then to view the current default target, you can check the default dot target. And to set the default target, you can run this command to set it. So it is explaining here the systemd, how the systemd is working, so that if any administrator who is not aware about it, he was working for the old system, it opens the file to check the run level, then it will say that okay, now this is what RHEL 7 and this is what we have changed. So what we have, we don't have this run level 0 now because it is for the shutting down the system. So we don't have this. Instead of this, we have the target called shutdown.target to shut down the system. And then we have run level 1. Now run level 1 we still have, actually it is now become rescue.target. It becomes the rescue mode, and it is actually a single user. It is actually same as Windows safe mode, where we have no services running, only the basic services are running and only one user can log in. Now in RHEL 6, till RHEL 6, this run level, this single user run level 1 is a root user, and only root user can log in, no other user can log in, and also it can log in without any password. But now in RHEL 7, we still have the rescue.target available, rescue mode, which is coming from rescue.target, but it is also same as the single user mode, where we don't have multiple services running and only the important and required services are running with only single user, that is root. But here you have to give the password for root. Without password you cannot log in into rescue mode or emergency mode. So it is same as the single user, but we have to provide the password for root, otherwise you can't log in. Then this multi-user 2 is not there. 2 and 3 is now same as the multi-user.target. That is what it is actually command line. Then 4 was not used, till there is no use. Then what? 5 is actually GUI. Now we have graphical.target. And then 6 is actually rebooting the system, and rebooting means what? Rebooting means simple. We have reboot.target for it. So we don't have run level. Now still the file is there, and actually it is still, if suppose we want to move the run level, we have to we want to change the run level from run level 1 to 2 to 3. So till RHEL 6, what we do, we use the init command. We use the init command to change the run levels in previous versions, but still run levels are not there, but still we can use this command. As I said, the RHEL 7 is sudden change after the RHEL 6. So those administrators who was working from RHEL 4, 5, 6, they were very used to this command. They were very used to this command, and they were using this command to just change the run level. So now we don't have any run level, but this command is still there and it do the job. It actually changes the run levels. For example, I want to go to run level 1, and also we can check the run level by running the command. This also works here. It is saying that right now I am in run level 1, previously not available because we have directly logged in run level 5. So if we want to change, so this init command also works. For example, I want to go to run level 1. I will try init 1 here, and you can see it has changed, and we are now into this rescue.target, or we can say welcome to, it is saying welcome to emergency mode. So this is what emergency mode, and it is coming from emergency.target, but it is not allowing me to log in without a password. So it is asking the password for root, and if I provide the password for root, then only I can log in. But in previous version, we don't have to provide any password, it can log in without password. Now when you check what is the run level, so it is saying right now we are in run level 1, previously we were in run level 5. So it is also showing option, the options are working, this command is still working, and I want to go to run level 3. Not all of this will work. And now we are in run level 3, that is what, multi-user, and I can log in. Now in this it asks the password, whether it is in RHEL 6 or 7, it will ask the password. And now we are in run level 3, previously we were in run level 1. Now when I give it 5, so it will take me back to graphical. Run level 2 will not work because there is no run level 2 available here in RHEL 7. So these are working because the same option we have available here, like run level 1 is same as the emergency or rescue mode, and then run level 1 is run level 3 is same as the multi-user here. Multi-user.target is the command line, and run level 5 is same as the graphical.target. Now if we give a run level 0 here, if I give a command run level 0, then what it will do, it will reboot this, it will shut down the system. If I give run level 0, so it will do what, it will shut down the system, and if I give run level 6, then it will reboot the system. Now the command still works, but this command is only for the old administrator who is very used to with this command. They were very used to this command, they use this command. So for them the command is still there, but for managing the system D, the command is system CTL. Now this is the command we have to manage the system CTL, system D. So if we want to check what is the default.target, whether it is graphical or command line, so we can check by using the system CTL command. I will say get default. What is the default.target? So it shows that the default.target is set to graphical. So that is why it is booting always with graphical. Now for example, I want to go to command line multi-user.target. So I can use the command systemctl isolate, and I want to go to multi-user.target. So it will take me to multi-user.target. Now this is how we change. We don't use init here because init is still there, it will work. It will, if we say init 3, then it will take me to the multi-user.target, but this is the real way. because this is system D. And now we are under the multi-user dot target, and we can check the run level, it will show the same thing. And then if I want to go back to, so I will say isolate to graphical dot target, so it will take me to the graphical dot target. Or any, if I want to go to rescue dot target, emergency dot target, all of those targets are also there. Like I will say rescue dot target, so it will take me to rescue dot target, emergency dot target, single user. Or I want to go to graphical, so I will say I want to go to graphical dot target, and it will take me to graphical dot target. Then for rebooting or shutting down the system, we have also command systemctl. So we can use systemctl to change the target to reboot, the system, and to shut down we can go for shutdown.target also. Now this is what to change. So but by default is what, when you check the default, so default is what, graphical.target. Now if we want to change it to command line, so if I suppose if it is a command line dot target and you want to change it to graphical, or if it is a graphical you want to change it to command line, then we can use a command systemctl for it. Systemctl, we can say set default, and then you want to set what you want to set, you can mention I want to set it to multi-user dot target. Now see what it do, that is also interesting. So now it is doing what, it is changing the default to multi-user dot target. When you check now, it is saying now it is multi-user. So whenever we boot the system, it will boot it into command line. Now what it do here, that is interesting. It is doing what, it is actually creating the sim link. It is creating the sim link. First it is removing the link. It is removing the first link file, the default dot target, and then it is creating the new link, and it is creating the new link from this lib directory, usr lib, and this is what, the multi-user dot target, and it is creating the link for the multi-user dot target into the etc directory by using this name default dot target. So it is actually do what, it creates the link, it removes the previous link, create the new link. We can do it manually also. Again I want to set it to graphical, so I will set it to graphical again, and again it do what, it removes the previous link and then it created the new link. Now every dot target is a configuration file, and they are simply depending on the others. So if you want to see what are the dependencies, so when you boot the system, so first it will complete the dependency and then it will boot. So when it checks the default dot target, first our system boots, so it checks the default dot target, and based on the default dot target it will start the dependencies, and then finally it will start the system. So for checking the dependencies, we can check the command, we can use a command systemctl list the dependencies, and then we can say like I want to list the dependencies of graphical dot target. So it shows all the dependencies here. So this graphical dot target first needs to run these services with this target, multi-user dot target. Now multi-user dot target is actually our command line. So first command line will execute, then the graphical will execute with these services. Now for running the command line, we need to have these services and targets running first. And you can see it in hierarchical way. Now I just want to see only the targets, I don't want to see the whole services. So I will do what? I will grab only targets. Now we can see easily here that graphical.target need first command line.target multi-user. Multi-user.target needs basic target, getty target, NFC, NFS target, remote FS target. And this basic.target needs what? Path, slice, socket, sysinit, timer. And this sysinit needs this crypto setup, local FS, swap. And this getty is what it is to set the getty terminals. Getty terminals are these terminals which we have on F2, F3, F5. These are the getty terminals. So this target is to set those getty terminals. Then these are for file systems. So this is how our system boots, and it do this default.target. The targets depend on this. Now if I check multi-user.target, so it will show me all these dependencies. Now if we want to see the units, so we can use systemctl list units. Now it will list all the units here. Units. Now all the units which is loaded, which is active, and with the description. So it is showing what are the unit names and what are whether it is loaded properly or not, and active and sub is the status. This active, it is running, waiting is the waiting, and description about it. You can see all of these dot targets, dot services, everything. And you can see the description here that load means reflects whether the unit definition was properly loaded or not, all the configurations. And active means the high level unit activation state, that is generalization of sub. And then sub means the low level unit activation state, values depends on unit type. So sometime it is waiting or sometime it is active. And if we want to see all with the failed ones also, then we can add all option also. Right now it is only showing active or running. It is not showing those which is not able to run or suppose error. So if you want to see all, then we can add all option also. And now it shows all, including not active also, where you can see some of them is not active. Previously it was showing only active, but now it is showing also those are not active or dead. Like these ones are inactive and dead. Then if you want to see the files of these units, then we can use this command, list unit files. Or here if you want to see only the target units, then you can mention the type also. Type is equal to target, and it shows only the targets here now, whether they are loaded, not loaded properly. So here it is showing all those targets, whether it is loaded or not loaded, target units. And if we want to see the files, unit files, so we can run the command systemctl list unit files, and it is going to show you all the file units and their states, set to static, disable or enable. Static is not enable, it is going to enable automatically when it is required. Enable is set to enable by default, and disable means it is by default disable. So these are the services files also. So some of the files are static, some of them are loaded, enabled, disabled. Now for example, I want to set some, like for example, if I grab it from here, I say VSFTPD service. So it is saying that these are disabled, these are set to disable. We can set, so if we want to change this service status or manage the service status, so we can check this command also, systemctl, and then we can check the status also for these particular services. vsftpd dot service, and it says what this is loaded properly, but right now it is inactive, dead, and default is also set to disable. So if you want to run it right now, so we can run the command start to start the service, and now it is started. And also it is not enabled by default, but it is started right now. So currently it is running, but when the next time when we boot the system, it will go back to disable. And if you want to make it enable always, then we can use this systemctl enable command for it. Now it is enabled, and when you check, you will see that it is enabled now. And one more thing, interestingly, what when you enable any services, or you have seen that target we have changed, so what happens, it creates the symlink. It creates a link from this lib directory to this etc directory. So all the links are there, which is going to run when our system boots. If you want to disable it, so we can remove the link, or we can use the command to disable it. Now what it do, it actually removes the link. Now it is not going to boot when our system starts. It is not going to start, but right now it is still running. It is still running. Now if suppose we did some changes on this service configurations, so we don't have to reboot the whole system. In Linux, in Windows, we do some changes in application, we install or do some changes, then what we have to do, we have to reboot the whole system, because it is a graphical thing. But here what we have to do, and it is not a file based operating system. So here in Linux, what we can do, instead of running the whole rebooting the whole system, we can just reboot this service, or when we reboot the service, it will update the changes. What we can do, we can run the command reboot, and it will just reboot. Oops, sorry. We give restart to just restart that particular service. We don't have to restart the whole system. We can just restart only that service to update the changes. It will restart the service, and the changes what we have made, it is going to be updated. Now if you don't want to restart the service also, sometimes restart means what, it is going to shut down and restart. Or if suppose some users are connected, so they will be disconnected for some time. So we can do what, instead of running the restart, we can do reload also. We can run reload also, and reload will do what, it will reload it without restarting it. Now this is not applicable for this service, this dot service, this application unit, but it is applicable for others also. Now if it is not applicable to reload this, then what we can do, we can restart it. So reload is also good option without restarting the service, but if it is not supported, then we can just restart, but we don't have to restart the whole system. Now we know how the grub works, and how we can modify the parameters of grub, and how the systemd works, and how we can have the systemd files where it is, and how we can modify some of the files. Now we want to see what happens, we have some problems. What happens if we have some problems, and how we can solve those problems. Now the first problem, or basic what we can see is what, suppose the user root password. For example, we forgot the password of root, or suppose the person who configured the password is now not available, and he is not contacting also, and we are not getting the password, and we want to log into our Linux, and we want to do something. Or suppose the administrator who have set the password is not there, he's left the job, is not available now. The new administrator comes, and he have to set the password, he have to log into the server to do something, but he see the password is there, and he is asking the password, nobody knows it. Now what to do, what we can do, we have two options. Either to reinstall everything, that means reinstall the system, configure everything again, that will be the big task, or just break the password. Now the breaking password is easy option, and that is also available by Red Hat. It is given by Red Hat, like for example. So we can do what? We can reconfigure the password for root. Remember, we cannot get the password. We cannot get the previous password. We can always reset the password, but we cannot get the password of root or any user, because it is put it into the shadow file, and it is hashed. It is hashed with the hashing algorithm SHA 512 bit. It is not easy to recover it. So what we can do, we can reset it. Now how to reset it? Now remember, I said that we can reset the system. We can set some configuration values for the kernel at the booting time. So what we can do, we can just go to the single user mode in RHEL6 or till RHEL6. What we do, we actually go to the single user mode till RHEL6, and while we go to single user mode, only root user can allow to log in and without any password. So till RHEL6 it was very easy. It was very easy. We have to just go to the single user mode, and then just we have to change the password of root. We can change the password of root because it logged in as a root without any password. But now we have a single user as a rescue or emergency mode, but it asks the password of root there. Without password we cannot log in. Now how we'll do that? First, let's say I want to go to single user, and right now I have no login option available. Right now suppose it is not login, it is just started. Now my system is starting, I don't know the password, and I'm logging in. Now when you're logging in, so you have to provide the password to log in, and you don't know the password, whether it is RHEL6 or RHEL7. So what you do in RHEL6, you go to single user mode, and then you do what? You change the password, because single user is root and root logs in without any password. So you can change the password easily. But here in RHEL6, if you go to single user, that is equivalent of single user is a emergency. So it is not possible to change the password, because it asks the password for root first, and I don't know the password of root now. So what I will do here, I know the name but I don't know the password. It is wrong. So what we do reboot it. Now it is, if it is RHEL6, so what we do, we go to single user mode. But how we will go? When it is when we have a command line option available, then what we do, we use the command init. In RHEL6 we use command init, then we mention run level 6, and we go to run level 6, run level 1. And here in Linux, in this RHEL7, what we do, we give the command systemctl isolate, and we'll go to single user rescue or emergency.target. We can go that. But when it is not running, then how we will give the command? So remember, I have told you that we can change the parameters at the booting time. So when our system is booting, so we can change the parameters of kernel. So what we do, we reboot the system, and when it is booting, it will ask for the kernel. So we stop the timer, we select the kernel, and then we'll press E for editing the kernel. And what we do, we press E here and we edit the kernel. Now what we edit, we actually add the parameter. We add the parameter to go to single user mode. Now in RHEL6, what we have to do, in a kernel, in the line of the kernel, that is Linux 16, we just have to add at the end, we just have to add 1. We don't have to add anything. We just have to add 1, or we have to add single. These two options we have to add, and it will work. But here what we have to do, if you want to go to the single user mode, so what we have to do, we have to give system unit, and then is equal to, we will mention what you want, rescue.target. So you can do this, but remember, this rescue mode or emergency mode is still ask the password. That is not in RHEL 6. When you go for single, you will log in as a root and you can change the password. Here it is asking the password. So I will boot the system into single user here, but it will ask the password. And this is what the rescue mode here, emergency mode, and it will do what? It will ask the password for root. If you know the password, then only you can do what? Log in and you can do anything changes. But if you don't know, then what? You can't do anything. Now again, we don't know the password of root. So we can't do this here. We can't do this here. So what we'll do here in RHEL 7, if it is RHEL 6, then it will be easy here. In this step, the password is broken. But here we can't do that. So what I will do, I will reboot, and what I will show you what we should do when we have RHEL 7. Okay, so in RHEL 7 also we will do what? We will reboot the system and we will select the kernel and press E to edit. And then what we will do? We will go to the line of kernel and then we'll add the parameter in the kernel. We will add the parameter called rd.break. Now this parameter will do what? It will actually break the boot process. And it will break the boot process when the RAM disk is loaded. Initial RAM disk is loaded and our main file system is loaded into a sysroot directory. Remember the boot process, what happened when the kernel loads the init rd process runs, then it do what? It loads the main file system into our /sysroot directory of initial RAM-fs. So first the kernel will load and then it will do what? It will load the initial RAM-fs, and in this temporary file system it will create one directory /sysroot, and in that sysroot directory it mounted our main file system. So this rd.break will break the process at that time before loading our main file system, and the temporary file system is loaded and our main file system is going to load. At that time it will break the process, and that time we don't have a password for root. It is not asking the password for root. Let's see. And that time it will do what? It will not ask any password for root user. Now here what we are seeing here is this. We are getting the terminal here with the root user without any password. Now what is this? What we have here? So actually when you list the slash, so you can see the file system here. All the file system, you see the bin directory, dev, drcode directory, etc, init, lib, lib64, proc, root, run, sbin, shutdown, sysroot, temp, usr, var. You see all these directories. Now these directories are actually that initial RAM-fs directory. These are the temporary file system. And our main file system is loaded into this sysroot directory. And it is not loaded now in our main system. And what? It has been breaking. It is break the boot process here. Now when you see this sysroot directory, so you can see our main file system. This is our main file system where we have created these directories at test, and these default directories are also there. We have created some directories like movies, NIS, red data. These are the directories which we have created, and with all these default directories are there. So this is our main file system. So main file system is loaded into this sysroot directory, and these are the temporary file system of initial RAM-fs file. Now we can do what? We can change the root password, not only the root password. Now this is for doing the troubleshooting actually. So if suppose your system is not starting because of some file configuration file or misconfiguration files, you have misconfigured some configuration files, then you can go to this place, you can go and do the rd.break, and you come into this and you can see the file here, and under the etc directory or wherever you can do the changes. Now only if you know what you have done wrong. So you can fix it. While if your system is not starting, even it is not starting, like your system is starting and then reboot again, reboot again, reboot again. So you can fix the problem. You can come here, you can go to the directory, you can see the etc directory, you can go to the configuration file, you can change it. But the changes will not it will not actually allow you to change by default, because it has loaded the file system here, but it is loaded into read only form. So if you see this, if you grab this mount and if you grab this sysroot, so you will see here it has been mounted. This SDA2 is mounted on this sysroot, but it is on read only. So read only, that means if you want to do the changes, you are not able to do the changes because it is read only. So first thing you have to do, whether you want to change the password of root or you want to change any configuration for troubleshooting, you can do what you have to read, you have to change this read only to read write. And for that we will use the command, you will use the command mount with the option -o, and the option I will give remount. This option will do what? It will remount the file system, that means unmount and mount again, and I am saying mount it with read write option. And what? So I will mention the directory sysroot. Now this command do what? It remounts the file system with read write entry. Now when you check it again, I am grabbing again, and now we see we are having the read write option available. Now what we can do? We can do the read write and we can edit something here. Now I don't want to edit anything, my system is working properly, I just want to change the password of root. So I will run the command passwd, and then I will mention the password, I want to change the password for root. Now what it says here, it says the passwd command is also not found. Why? Because it is not a main file system, it is a temporary file system, it is not having all the commands here. So if you have the main file system loaded, then we can run this command also. So what we can do here, we can add our main file system, we can execute our main file system, we can load our main file system. Anyhow it is going to do automatically, but we are doing manually here because what? We want to get the access. So what I will do, I will run the command chroot here, chroot to change the root file system, and I want to load this file system from this directory. So this command will do what? It will change the root file system and it will load our main file system, remove the temporary file system. And now when you see here, your shell is also changed to sh, and now you get your main file system. Now when I list / directly, it shows me my file system. It is not showing this one, the temporary one, because now we have our own file system loaded. Now when I run the command passwd, it is running the command and I can change any user's password, any user password or root user also. Now make sure you give the right password. Now I am changing the password to XYZ and it is changed. Now after changing the password, it is done now, and any changes you want to do, you can do it. You have loaded your main file system. Now you can do what? You can run any command to fix your system, and then when you are finished, then you can exit from here. Now before exiting, you have to do one more thing. Remember, there is an option here in RHEL 7. It is called SE Linux. SE Linux is actually a security program. It do what? It provides the security to every files and directories, and for that it do what? It adds a labels to every files and directory in our system. Now when you go to this rd.break, then what it do actually, it is not able to create the it is not able to properly relabel the files. So what we have to do, we have to make sure that we have to touch one file here before exiting, and that is a hidden file under /, and the file name is .auto relabel. This file will indicate the SE Linux to relabel the files and directory again. It will take the time depending on the size of the file system you have, but it will do it. Now if you don't do this, if you don't touch the file, then what it will do, it will not start your system. The RHEL will not, it will, the SE Linux will wait for the labeling and it will confuse and it will not able to start the system. Now in case suppose you forgot to do this touch command, if you forgot to touch the file and you started, you have exit from here and reboot the system and now your system is not starting, then don't get panic. Do what? Do the process again. Use the rd.break option in the booting with the kernel, and then come to this place, remount the file system with read write option, then touch the file and then go exit again. It will do it. So if it is you forgot to do this and your system is not starting, then what? Don't get panic, do it again. Now I know, so I did it, and then I can exit from here, and then also I can exit from here, and now our system is going to boot normally, and you can see when it do the SE Linux thing. Here it is doing the relabeling and it is done very fast. This is what warning: SE Linux target policy relabel is required, and relabeling could take a very long time and depending on the file system size. So it is relabeled, and it is relabeled very quickly, I think, because what, I don't have much file system available. It is not, we don't have a much size here, so it is relabeling very quickly. It is doing it here, and we can see all these options, all these messages. Why? Because we have configured RHGB quite. We have removed the RHGB quite. Now if you miss the auto relabel file, then what? It will not say the auto relabel, and then what? Your system will not boot. And if it is RHGB quite set, then what? You will not able to see the message also. You will see only the screen, blank screen, and you will not see anything. So don't get panic, do it again. Now what we did, we actually break the password of root, and we have what? We have break the password of root very easily. Now you will say, what is the security here if anyone can easily break the password of root? So actually we can set the password for grub also. That means we have it is possible for us to break the password. Why? Because we are able to edit the grub, we are able to edit this kernel parameter by using the E option. It is possible because we have this option available. Now if you want to secure this, then what you can do, you can put a password on grub also, so that when anyone try to edit the kernel parameters by using the E option, then it has to provide the username and password, and if it does not know the username and password, then it is not able to edit this. So for securing this password reset, we can do what? We can put the password on grub. So we can configure the password on grub, and we can do what? We can secure our Linux system by this password cracking. So if anyone try to crack the password, they have to know the password of grub, otherwise they are not able to crack the password. So how we can set the password on grub? Now we change the password, and we can change the password because there is a no password, no security for grub, but we want to put the password on grub also, so that no one can change the password. So how we'll do that? We can do that by changing the configuration files of grub, and we can add it, and we can do it by using the templates from the etc directory. So under the etc directory we have the templates under the grub.d directory, and there is a file called 40.custom. So in this we can add the custom configurations. So we can add here, and what I will add here, I will add set super users is equal to, let's say, root, and then password for root is 1234. 1234. Now this will do what? It will set the password on grub, and this will be the username and this will be the password. Now the changes which we have made here, it is not going to update automatically, so we have to run grub to mkconfig command. First you will run without anything, so you will see if it is any error. There is no error and the changes are also set here. So we can do what? We can update and we can redirect the configuration to main configuration file. And then now I will reboot and let's check, is it asking the password for grub or not. So I will stop it and then I will try to press E and see what it is doing. So when you press E here to edit the kernel, it asks the password, it asks the username. Username we have set the root, and the password. If I give the wrong password, it is not allowing me to edit. If I give the right password, then only it allows me to edit this thing. Otherwise it does not allow me to edit. So now what we did, we secure the grub also, so no one can change the password of root user. And if you don't want to change anything, then you can just press enter, select the kernel and it will start. So if you don't want to change anything. So what we did here, we saw how the system actually boots, how we can modify the grub or systemd, how we can manage them, and if we face some problem, so how we can solve it. We can go to the rd.break if our system is not running properly. We can go to the rescue mode also. If it is not working, then we can go to the rd.break. Just like we go for breaking the password, we can go to use the option to modify the changes also, like you want to change something from the configuration file, so you can fix the problem. So you can do it by using what? The methods. Just like we change the password of root. So these are the troubleshooting thing we can do. Now, if suppose we lost the password of root, now we don't know the password of grub also. Remember, the user, the administrator who configured the password for root, that also configure the password of grub also. Maybe he has also configured the password on grub. Now we don't know, and the administrator is not contactable. We are not able to contact him. So we are not getting the root password. So same, we are not getting the grub password also. So then what we do? Now that and other things we will see tomorrow, or we will see in the next lecture.